To dye or not to dye, that is the question. And of course, we are talking about hair dye. For probably 20 years, I colored my hair every 6 to 8 weeks. It was just something I did. It was something people around me were doing. And I never really questioned it until I did. And at some point, it just kind of started feeling like another thing on my to-do list to do. And I was questioning, did I really want to keep doing this? And I also kind of came into an internal conflict at some point where I was starting to learn more about holistic health and paying more attention to food ingredients and some of the things that were in our food. And then a couple years later, I started learning about all of the ingredients that are in our personal care products and our cleaners and our shampoos and all of these things, and realizing that, tens of thousands of chemicals were grandfathered in the 1976 Toxic Substance Control Act. And a lot of those chemicals never really had proper safety studies. And the more I started paying attention to health, the more I started questioning some of those ingredients and decided for myself that I wanted to have more simple, natural, clean ingredients. And, eventually I got into essential oils and learning more about that. And I was traveling all over Washington State, teaching people about essential oils and reducing their toxic exposure and living a cleaner lifestyle. But at the time, I was still going in every couple months and literally soaking chemicals into my head. And so it just, I just kind of had to get to this point where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Beyond the chemicals and not knowing what ingredients were in there and were they really clean and were they safe and all of that, it was, just the commitment, right? Once you always have a grow out line that's, the minute you dye your hair, you're having a grow out line. And so it was just kind of this thing on my to-do list, another thing that I had to maintain. It was time sitting, 2 to 3 hours sitting in the salon. And it wasn't so much the money, because I don't mind investing in myself. In fact, I'm a big proponent of investing in yourself and self-care. And if that to you looks like, coloring your hair, I'm not knocking that. I'm just, from my perspective, it was something that was becoming out of alignment with me. And it was just another thing that I had to do and to maintain. And at this stage of my life, I was really looking for ways to simplify my life, not complicate it. At that stage of my life, I didn't even know what my natural hair color looked like anymore. It had been probably 20 years of coloring my hair and not really knowing what my natural hair color looked like. How much gray hair did I have? Would I like it? Would I not like it? And so I started just kind of getting more curious, and I sort of felt a little bit disconnected from a part of myself, since that I didn't know what my real hair color looked like anymore. And I was starting to feel like less authentic. For me, it wasn't really about looking older or, worrying about looking older or anything like that. But definitely nobody in my own circle was growing their hair out gray, and especially long hair. Like, nobody was doing that. And so it was just sort of like this unspoken rule that you're, keep coloring your hair. And if you did let your hair grow out, which again, nobody in my circle was, but that there was like this unspoken rule that if women were going to have gray hair, it had to be short. And men, men are just distinguished if they have gray hair, but women, somehow that's a flaw that we have to fix. And it just didn't quite set right with me. The more I kind of, this was brewing underneath the surface, so to speak, I started joining Facebook groups online, and looking at other women who dared to not only let their hair grow gray, but also long gray hair. And I started noticing that a lot of women wear it very attractively. And those are wisdom hairs. We earned these wisdom hairs. And I don't know, I kind of borrowed courage from some of these other women, but honestly, it took me a couple of years to just rip the Band-Aid off and say, I'm done. I think it was the end of 2018 was the last time I colored my hair, because when I look back at photos, 2019 was definitely my year of transition. And I did not. I just stopped cold turkey. A lot of women will, transition their hair, and there's nothing wrong with that, if that's what you want to do. But I just decided that I was done and I was going to be done. So yeah, it didn't, there was some definitely awkward grow out, I'll share some pictures on the screen of what that transition year looked like. But it was kind of freeing too. I just did it. And eventually it kind of all blended in itself. I still don't have all of my hair gray. It's kind of multicolored. So it's like naturally frosted, right? For me, it was never really about hair. I've always been kind of simple. Like my hair has been either long or shoulder length. I kind of wear it either down or in a ponytail or in a bun, and that's about it. I just kind of keep things simple. But it felt like this complicated thing. So for me, it was kind of about reclaiming my time and freedom and aligning my time and money to where I felt like my values were and my authentic self was. And there was a confidence actually in just letting it go. And not really caring what people think. People probably didn't like my hair when I was coloring it too. Like no matter who you are and what you do, some people are always gonna have criticisms to say about you. So at the end of the day, you have to do what feels right for you, right? So this video isn't to convince somebody to stop coloring their hair or to shame somebody who does color their hair. At the end of the day, I think we each have to do what makes us feel good and authentic. And, there's some people who put beautiful pink colors in their hair and that's authentically them. But it wasn't for me to keep doing that. So if this is something that you've been considering whether or not to let it go gray, I would just encourage you to find the courage to do it. If it's something that you're curious about, you can always change it, right? That's something about hair is we can always go back, but I never will. It was one of the most freeing things that I ever did, and I have no regrets. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.